Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's just Jame and I'm just here trying to change your perspective. Although I wish I didn't have today's perspective, I hope that sharing our story will be a blessing to you and maybe help in some way when this happened to us. I watched several other videos like this of women and couples who went through what we went through, so let's just get into it. So we were expecting our first child on March 5th of 2022 this year. And on February 15th, we found out that she didn't have a heartbeat. I just stopped feeling her move and we got checked. They sent us home for the night because it was really late, and we called everybody the next morning and we went to the hospital and we were induced. And on February 17th, and sometime in the morning, we gave birth to our daughter, Eden Ray Roper. She was 6 pounds, 15 ounces, and 18 inches long. And as far as I'm concerned, she was perfect. We don't know a lot about what happened. We never had any indication that something was wrong. Although I will say that I felt like something was wrong, but I had no proof of that, and I thought that I was being paranoid. I do pediatric home health, and so I see lots of sick kids, very, very sick kids every single day, and I just thought that I was being paranoid. And so anyway, they did come back and say that there were blood clots in the placenta, and there was a part of the placenta on her side that the vessels were deformed. And they don't know if the clots were pre or post-mortem. I lean towards that they were post-mortem. I've talked to other women that this has happened to, and they said the same thing. So it's most likely that my blood just kept pumping into her. So anyways, so we had her on February 17th, and today is August 17th. It's been 6 months today, and I've been trying to make this video, and today just felt like the right day to do it. We got 7 hours with her at the hospital, and considering that we wanted to do a home birth, that was our plan. We had everything ready. We had the pool in our bedroom. So considering all of that, and that essentially everything that we didn't want happened. I got an epidural. I tore in 3 places. It was, for what it was, the hospital was great. The nurses were phenomenal, and it was the hardest 3 days of my life, of our lives, and I pray to God that we never ever have to experience that much pain again. We did, throughout the process, there was lots of little blessings, I guess. I told Ryan some months ago, I don't know, that those little blessings were sort of like fireflies. Like I felt like the lights got turned out on us. And, you know, when you're in the dark and it's nighttime and you see just a little flicker of light from a little firefly, that's sort of how it felt. Like there's, you know, yeah, it's dark, but we're not alone. There are these little glimpses of hope and joy and love, and those absolutely came through and resonated with us. One of the biggest blessings early on was one of our nurses. Her name's Haley. She lost her son in October, and I was the first mom that she took care of when she came back to work. And she was with us through it all. And she was able to minister to us and to share Hudson's story with us. And just seeing her and her joy and being able to know that there is hope, because I felt in those first few weeks, I felt like I was never going to feel joy again. I couldn't imagine how I could ever be happy again. And so seeing Haley and seeing that she survived, and her baby was 13 days old when he passed away. And so seeing that she survived and that she made it to the other side, that was such a blessing. And we still keep in touch. So that was just one example of a little firefly moment. And there were lots of them. I will say that especially those first few weeks, the only thing that got me through was Ryan and Jesus. And I mean it. Ryan was a huge blessing. He did all sorts of, anything that I needed, he was right there with it. I couldn't, you think you love somebody, and then you go through something like this, and it's like you didn't even know what love was before this. And they say that this kind of situation will either make you or break you as a couple, and so it's definitely strengthened our love and our commitment to each other, and so that has been another huge blessing that's come out of this. And of course, we cling to the hope that Jesus gives us. We cling to Scripture and to the hope that we get to see her again one day. I didn't know that we didn't find out her gender. And we are grateful that we didn't, because to be honest, that was one of the very few bright moments in all of that, was getting to find out that she was a girl. And ironically, I thought she was a boy. When people would ask, what do you think? I thought she was a boy. I've never been pregnant before. I didn't know. And just based on my symptoms, that was what I felt. And, they talk about mom guilt, which is so real. And that is like one of the things that I feel guilty about, among a 1,000 other things, down to like eating ramen noodles. Like your brain can make up all sorts of things to try to just justify and make sense of what's happened. But anyway, I thought she was a boy. So when they said she was a girl, I panicked. I didn't have a name. I had several girl names, but none of them were right in that moment. And they laid her on my chest, and within, like, it just came to me, the name Eden. That was one of the names I had picked, but it wasn't one of the ones that I was planning on using. It was just one of them in my list. And I just knew, that's where she was in paradise. And so that was why we named her that. And that, her name gives us a lot of peace, just knowing that that's where she is, and her name is just a reminder of that. And so that's why we named her Eden. And you know, in a lot of ways, her name is all that we have. We never got to meet her, so I don't have, you know, a lot of memories or things that remind me of her, but I have her name, and I wear it around my neck. Ryan got me this necklace, and I don't take it off. We got, several people gave us other necklaces, and one day I will wear them, but right now I just like to see her name. And you know, it's funny because people always will when they do, nobody ever knows what to say, right? So when they do bring her up, they'll apologize for making me cry, and I always tell them, don't apologize. I'm her mom. That's all I have, is to cry for her and to grieve for her. And what mom doesn't want to talk about their child, and to hear their name, and to know that they were a real person, and that they mattered, you know? So don't ever apologize for, that's all I can do as her mom, is to cry for her and grieve for her. And you know, it's harder to, I know some women don't like to talk about it, and I'm not one of those people. She was my child, and she was everything, and not talking about her feels like she didn't exist, like she didn't matter. And I've been in several situations where it was the elephant in the room, and her name wasn't mentioned, and that's it feels like a bomb went off in our lives. It feels like we woke up one morning and everything just exploded, and like we're just left picking up the pieces. And I mean, that's what it feels like. It feels like a bomb went off. I don't know how else to explain it. It's disorienting, and so anyway, so we got 7 hours with her. The hospital was great. Anybody who wanted to come in and see her was able to. We had a waiting room full of people that some of them stayed overnight. All our parents stayed overnight, and you know, there were just, we were surrounded by love, and we got 7 hours to hold her and take pictures with her, take pictures of her. They did her fingerprints, or her handprints, and her footprints, and And it was just not enough time. And honest to God, leaving her at the hospital was the hardest thing I pray to God I'll ever have to do. So we went home and excuse me. We went home and just tried to move forward. I had Ren's mom and dad and his sister. We had a house full of baby stuff. It was just everywhere. The high chair and the bassinet and the pool and just all these things. And so everybody sort of took that stuff down and put it away for us, and we just sort of tried to move forward. We had to plan a funeral, which is hard enough, but it makes it a lot harder when you never even got to meet your child. And so anyway, we planned her funeral. If you've been fortunate enough to not have to plan a funeral, you may not know this, but they sit you at this table and they give you all these books to look at, to pick out an urn and a guest book and music. And we took our pastor with us to sort of just help us. We've never planned a funeral before, and so he had a lot of good ideas. Him and Ryan, I was looking at everything, and Ryan said, we needed something a little more pink than what they had to offer. So we ended up getting the urn and the guest book somewhere else. My best friend made the guest book out of a scrapbook, and I'll show you after the video. I sort of turned it into a scrapbook with all the cards and letters we got. So we took her funeral as an opportunity to share the love of Christ. I prayed from the beginning that her life would be a testimony. I mean, from the beginning of my pregnancy, that her life would be a testimony, and that, that's not the way I anticipated it, but I still had that prayer on my heart. And so, so we had her funeral on her due date, March 5th. And I thought that it would be a day that I would look back on with just such sadness. And I did. I mean, I do, don't get me wrong. But it was filled with so much love. The entire chapel was packed out. We had so many people come and just love on us, and I gave her eulogy because I felt like I was the only one who really knew her at all. And so I thought that it was fitting, and I needed to do it as her mom. I needed to tell them about her. And so I talked about the foods that I craved when I was pregnant that she liked. I just, I said that she liked Chick-fil-A and lemonade and she liked salted caramel chocolate, and talked about how she didn't know it yet, but she already had a dirt bike picked out from Ryan that he was going to buy her. And I just tried to convey our love for her, God's love for her, God's love for us. After the funeral, we didn't want to go home to an empty house, and so we invited anybody that wanted to come over, and we had a house full of people, and it was such a blessing to just be surrounded by people that we loved, and you know, there was laughter and there was moments of joy, and there was lots of crying, but we were able to, it was very healing. And I can honestly say that I will look back on that day and it won't be a dark cloud for me like I thought it would be. The weather was beautiful, and it was just, it was a beautiful service. My best friend decorated, and it was beautiful. And so we have peace in knowing that God loves Eden more than we do. This didn't come as a surprise to him. And you know, where else would you want your child to be safe and loved and at peace than in the arms of Jesus? The Lord gives and he takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. God gave us Eden, and he's allowed to take her away, and we don't have to like it. And I'm not, there's all these questions that come up about, why bad things happen. And, God didn't do this. He may have allowed it, but he didn't do it. God is all good, and he is, the very absence of God is evil. That's how we get evil, is when people take God out of things. That's a very common misunderstanding that I think people have. And as Christians, we're not called to an easy life. We're called to be faithful, and we have faith in knowing, like I said, that God loves Eden more than we do, and he knows what's best for us. He knows what's best for her, and he works all things together for our good. I don't have all the answers, and I don't need all the answers. I have peace, and that's enough for me right now. If I had to describe what it was like, aside from a bomb going off, if you remember the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they were thrown into the fire, and they saw a fourth person walking around in there, and they came out, and they weren't burned, and their clothes didn't smell of smoke even in the slightest. And that is how I think, if it's early on especially, that was sort of what it felt like. It was a very bizarre feeling. Maybe it was shock, I don't know, but I know what I went through. I saw the flames, I felt the flames, I felt the pain, but I came out and relatively unscathed, I would say. I still have my joy. I still have hope and peace, and this didn't take any of that from me, from us. There's a really good book and movie. I'm a book person. I would say read the book. I feel like the book did a better job of explaining things, but if you have to do it, there is a movie. It's called The Shack. And it does an excellent job of explaining how God uses our pain and our trauma to bring us closer to Him, and how He loves us through that, and how He takes care of us. So I highly recommend that. I had read the book and watched the movie, and after this happened, we watched it again. The movie is about a man whose daughter dies, and how he's mad at God for that, and so highly recommend that. That if you're dealing with some kind, if you can't make sense of this or your own trauma, I would recommend that book. It's fantastic. And we do have hope for the future. We have hope in knowing that we get to see her again one day in heaven. You know, as Christians, we're called to be heaven-minded, and I thought before this that I was pretty heaven-minded. My favorite worship songs are all about heaven. But now, man, I'm ready to go home. This world is not where I belong, and you know, it gives me a lot of peace to imagine that one day when I get to heaven, that maybe Jesus will be standing there waiting for me, and just holding her, waiting for me. They'll just be waiting for me at the gates. I have no scripture to back that up. I just like to imagine that she'll be waiting on me. There's another really good book that I've been reading called Heaven by Randy Alcorn, and it talks all about heaven and what it will be like, and that's another really good one if you're struggling. I highly recommend. We are incredibly thankful for the 8.5 months that we had with her. Eden felt more love in her 8.5 months than some people get in a whole lifetime. And so we are thankful for her, and we are thankful to be her parents. And yeah. So we also had awesome midwives. I should add that. Again, we were doing a home birth, so we didn't have the traditional setup. Our midwives were doing home visits before this, gearing up for giving birth, and so they came out before we went to the hospital and just walked us through our options. And Gina went to the hospital with us and stayed with us the whole time I was in labor. I don't think she slept one time. Every position change, anything I needed, she was right there. She couldn't act as my midwife, but she was able to, help me make decisions and help me to just kind of stay calm. And both of them were just such a blessing. And then afterward, I had, I think I mentioned I tore in 3 places, and so They were able to fix me up. It took a couple of visits for that, but that was very helpful. And they just came out, I think like once a week for a while and checked on me. I had a fever that would not go away, and I don't typically get sick. And so they thought it was my milk, but it just would not go away, and it progressively got worse to the point that like Tylenol and ibuprofen were not managing it. It got up to almost 106. And if you know me, again, I don't like medicine. I don't really have a lot of faith in our modern Western healthcare. And so I think if I had been in a healthier state, I probably would have been fine. But the stress on my body, I couldn't handle it. And so I ended up going on antibiotics. I ended up having an infection in my uterus. That was where my fever was coming from. And honest to God, I couldn't tell you the last time I had a fever before that. It was at least high school, if not middle school. I mean, I don't remember. I'm just not one to get sick. And it was so bad that I would like shake uncontrollably. Like I could not stop myself. And then that would like kind of affect my breathing. And I ended up, when it got up to almost 106, I like sent myself into a panic attack over it. Like anyway, so that was a mountain to climb and get over in the middle of all of this other stuff going on. But we operated on the mindset that our worst days were behind us. We said in the hospital so many times, nothing will be harder than this. I'll never forget, before they came and got her, Ryan and I laid in bed together, and we put her on our legs were together, so we put her between us on our legs, and we just stared at her and just talked about how much we loved her, and how this is it. This is the hardest, it can only get better from here. And so that's been our mindset is, we've been through harder, we've been through worse, and we can get through this, whatever it may be. If we're having a bad day or whatever, it's never going to be as bad as that day was. And so we got home, like I said, but after the hospital, and those first few days, first few weeks, really, we just would sit and cry together. We would sit and listen to worship music and cry together. We would sit and stare at the wall and cry together. We would sit in bed and cry together. We would talk about, just how we were feeling, what we were thinking. I'll never forget, we left the funeral home after we planned it, and we went and got food, and then we drove back by the funeral home, and I remember Ryan saying, it's weird that we're driving past the funeral home and our daughter's there. And we're just driving by like it's totally normal. I mean, this is a road we go down, all the time, multiple times a week. And, you just have these crazy, morbid thoughts sometimes. I can't tell you how many times my brain has just will just say, your child is dead. Your daughter's dead. You have a daughter and she died. Like, it's like my brain just
even now, sometimes my brain will, it's like my brain doesn't want to forget. I don't know. But you just have these crazy thoughts that come up. And so we would talk about those things. And we got lots of food and lots of visitors in the beginning. And sometimes we drank a little too much, but you know, we were surviving. And so we started going to a grief share program at our church, which is a 13-week program. You watch videos, there's a workbook. Highly recommend that. It was very helpful. We see a grief counselor. We've been seeing a grief counselor since March or April, and he specializes in prenatal death and perinatal death, maybe is the word. I'm not sure. He specializes in this sort of thing, and he has been a huge blessing. And it's really helpful because in the day-to-day, you know, Ryan and I are both dealing with this, and we don't always talk about it. It's, you know, you go through life, you just kind of like check off the days, check off, yeah, we did dinner, yeah, the laundry's done, yeah, the oil got changed, whatever. And we don't always take the time to say, like, man, I had a really hard day today, or man, that really hit me a certain way. And so at grief counseling especially, we're sort of forced to do that in a way. You usually leave feeling like you got hit by a Mack truck, but it's definitely worth it. And I'm so thankful that Ryan goes with me. He had at one point said maybe he wouldn't go, and he's continued to go. And I'm not meaning to share his business. I'm just saying I'm thankful that he goes with me, because I think it's been very helpful for both of us in just moving forward and trying to figure out what life looks like without her. And so lots of counseling and lots of just prayer. And I've started journaling every morning. I've been trying to do it. A lot of people told me I should when it first happened, and I just wasn't in a place that I could. And so now I've been able to do that. And, you know, sometimes I write out my prayers. Sometimes I write to Eden. Sometimes I just write for whoever reads it after I'm dead and gone. I don't know. And then for the funeral, I asked for houseplants instead of flowers, because I could not bear the thought of throwing a bunch of flowers away. And so we got a ton of plants. And is there a bug in my hand? I don't know. Okay. So we got a bunch of plants, and after the funeral, everybody, like I told you, everybody came over and they were bringing the plants in, and they just kept coming and coming. And I had a little bit of panic set in, because I thought, what have I gotten myself into? I've never been able to keep a houseplant alive. I do not have a green thumb. And all these plants are going to die, and I'm going to spiral into an even deeper, darker depression than I was already headed towards. And so for about a week or so, I sort of just ignored them. We put them on the kitchen table or on the dining room table, and we just left them there. And after about a week, and once I started feeling a little bit better, I took a picture of each one and would lay in bed and watch TikTok videos about how to take care of these plants. And I gave myself permission that if one of them died, I would just buy it again. I would just go to the store and I would find another one and I would buy the same plant and it would be okay. And that was sort of how I dealt with that anxiety. I am in no means a great plant worker or whatever you want to call it. But I'm learning and I've come a long way. I'll show you, I'll do a little plant tour when the video's over with. And then now I've started working on a garden outside. I will not show you that because it does not look good yet. It's been a little neglected. It's been very hot here in Georgia. So, but one of my dear friends offered to help do a memorial garden, and so it's been a slow process, but I know what I want and I want it to be right. And so I've taken my time and I've got time to kill. So I don't mind that it's taken a while. Like I said, I want it to be right. And then we also have a shelf that I found. It's like a glass shelf I got it specifically for all of her plants. And I put pictures of her on it, and the urn, and the guest book that was made, pictures, all that stuff. And then I bought grow lights on Amazon, and I attached them so that the plants, would have light. And so that sits in our foyer, and so it actually, like when we sit on our couch, we can see it. It's right across from us, and there are times when I'll just stare at her picture, or it's just a nice way to honor her and to remember her. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't. Sometimes I'll just, on a bad day, I'll just hold her picture and I'll just sit in the floor in front of that shelf and I'll just cry my little eyes out and just look at her pictures and just remember her. And so that is just another way that we have honored her memory. We got some stickers made that say her name. Some of y'all probably know Ryan races motocross, and so I wanted the sticker specifically for his helmet and his bike, and we're always getting new helmets and new bikes, so I got a bunch of them. So he has a sticker with her name on it on the back of his helmet, which I just love. We spent a lot of our days at the track when I was pregnant talking about having her at the track and what it was going to be like. Was she gonna ride, and so that's just a way for us to have her with us in some sense. And then I went from not really owning anything pink to now I feel like everything I own, everything I buy is pink. I have my pink water bottle. I went out and bought my pink notebooks and pink everything. I don't know, it just feels like, it just makes me think of her. And so anyway, that's kind of how we have been surviving and what we've been dealing with. And it's not always easy. Some days are great, and some days are miserable, and most of them are just kind of average. But like I said, we have hope in the Lord, and we're moving forward. We're surviving and moving towards thriving again. We've made changes in our lives. We used to be very social people, and it's really been hard to go out and to be around people in our old lives, I guess you could say. It's very hard to because we're not the same people anymore. I'm never going to be the same person that I was. A part of me died when she died, and I'll never be the same, and I don't want to be the same. I'm thankful to be her mom, and you know, if I have to bear this pain to do that, then I guess that's what I have to do. That's my job as her mom, is to grieve for her and to cry for her and to talk about her, and to learn from her, and to not let her death be in vain. And so trying to move forward and figure out how our old life fits into our new life has been very challenging. There are lots and lots and lots of painful reminders that she's not here. And so that has been a real struggle. But like I said, our worst days are behind us. So, and this is my first video back in more than 6 months. So, my goal is to start making videos again. I need something to do with my time, and I didn't want to start back making videos until I had to do this first. I just did. I needed to tell her story, to tell our story, and so yeah, that's where we are. So hopefully in the near future I will be making more videos, and if this has happened to you or someone you know, I hope this video helps in some way. And feel free to reach out if you have questions. Or one of the things that I did that really helped me the most was I sort of set goals for myself. I'm a very task-driven person, and so I told myself, for example, I didn't want to go back to work until I had cleaned out the nursery. We left the nursery. We didn't do anything different with it. It was just, we put everything in there, and so it was a mess. And I wanted to be able to go in there and cry if I needed to. I wanted to be able to go in there and remember her. Just things like that. So that was just an example of a goal that I set for myself to kind of, and it was a long process. I mean, there were several times when I didn't even get to open the door before I broke down crying, and I thought, okay, I'm not ready. But it was an incredibly therapeutic and cathartic thing. I cried the entire time, but I needed it, and it was a very healing time. And so that was one thing. Another thing I did, I went and got a bunch of lab work done. I started seeing a functional medicine doctor, and I just wanted to know, am I digesting my food correctly? Am I deficient in any vitamins? Am I, just different things like that. And so that was another thing that I wanted to do before we start trying again, to be honest. And so those little bitty goals were sort of what I worked towards. And so anyway, those are just some things that helped us. Ryan highly recommends a sledgehammer and some cinder blocks. I've not tried that, but he says it's a great way to get some frustration and emotions out. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or share this with somebody that maybe is going through this. And if you're going through it, just know that it's going to be okay. You know, cling to the Lord, have hope for the future, and know that it won't be this dark forever. You know, joy comes in the morning. And so I love you guys, and I thank you so much for listening to our story and listening to Eden's story. I hope that it was a blessing to you, and I will see you guys next time. This is her shelf. There she is. This is the guest book my best friend made. And like I said, I just turned it into a scrapbook. This was from her service. And one of my friends wrote a poem that I added. This is all the stuff from her baby shower that I didn't know what to do with. So I just cut all the cards up and, you know, tried to make the best of it.